So let's go through the body, what is displayed to the user in the HTML code. Now you can see here that I start with a comment. Remember that a comment is code that is written, but that's not actually read or interpreted by the computer. It's what's displayed, and usually people put in comments to show other people who are going to be reading the code what the code is supposed to be doing. So I've got a comment there where I say this is the start of the HTML code. So we have the body, so that means this is actually the body of the document that's displayed. I've got the title. This is what's typically displayed in the browser title bar. So the title here is the Financial Modeling Podcast Infra Advisor Beta. It's quite a long title. And then I've got a new div. Now, again, you can actually see this when you hover over elements in Visual Studio Code. It shows you what it is, but what's quite nice about it is that divs, it says here, it has no special meaning, but everything underneath it is defined by this class, which is quite nice. So it says you can actually, define classes, and in a class define that the text needs to be centered and how big the text is, and everything is then between this div, the start of it and the end of the div, everything between that is formatted like that. So before, at the top of my div, I put an image, and I say I want the image to be centered, and I say I want it to have a width of 150 and a height of 150, and this is the link to the image or the source. So that's the image URL. Again, you can actually see when you hover into elements of the code, Visual Studio Code shows you what everything is. I really love this. It tells you, it will tell you what a class is, etc. Then I have my heading. So a heading is typically obviously a header section, but the text is displayed in a certain way, and I want that to be displayed in a certain way according to the CSS. And my heading is the Financial Modeling Podcast Infra Advisor Beta. Then what I do here is, I just quite like this. This was a CSS code element for a quote, and I thought that was quite cool. It looked quite nice. So you can see that it uses a block quote and a caption for the quote. So the quote I've got is, the infrastructure sector is about building assets that make our lives better, which is one of the reasons what I love about infrastructure finance. And then I've got the caption. Then we end off the caption, the figure, and the div. Then I actually start with the main body of the HTML file, and what I have over here is, I say the title is, what type of infrastructure do you want to build? Again, this is all centered and according to the div class element over there, and we'll go through those as well, what each of those mean when we get to the CSS. So now I've got an H4. So an H4 is a type of header, but it's a lot smaller than an H1. So H1 is heading 1, H4 is heading 4. And this is the question I'm asking, is what type of infrastructure do you want to build? Now note that anything in white over here, all of these things that are color-coded white, that's actually displayed to the user. That's like text in the HTML that's displayed to the user. Now this is the first thing that I wasn't sure how to do, and I used Bootstrap in order to do it, and that's that I wanted radio buttons. So this was Bootstrap copy-paste code that I put in, and it says what you need is an input over here. So an input allows the user to provide some input to the file, and the specific type of input that I have is a radio, so it's a radio button. So that's what I've got. And then I name this input class, which is, so this input, the specific input where they're choosing the input, it's the type of infra, that's just a short name I've given. Each option then has its own ID. So the first option, has 2 people, 4 people, 6 people. That was actually for another piece of code I was using, but you can actually have it for specific IDs. And then the checked value, this is what is actually read, what the HTML understands it to be. So this might be different from the actual text. In this case, it's the same, and the checked value over here is roads and borders. Now what I do is I actually have a label, so that's my specific radio button. My label is what's displayed to the user. So my label is for the input class of ID 2 people, and it's roads and borders. And then I end the label. I have a BR. So BR is like a line break element, and it just means that whatever's afterwards starts in a new line. So I have a line break, and then I've got another radio for the next option, and another radio for the next option. And this is my first div element. This is my first input element, and this really allows me to display to the user what type of infrastructure do you want to build, and for them to select what it is they want.